Today we shall discuss about payment of checks by the banker. Under this topic, we are going to discuss who is a paying banker and what are the circumstances under which paying banker can dishonor their checks and what are the precautionary measures that has to be taken by the paying banker before making payment of checks. Now we shall discuss about who is a paying banker. A paying banker is the bank who is responsible for paying a check when it is presented for payment, provided there should be sufficient funds in the customer's account and the check is valid. The paying banker is responsible to his customer and is under duty to make payment to the right person in accordance with the instruction given by the drawer. If he honors the check carelessly and negligently without following the instructions of the drawer, he subjects himself to heavy liability. Now we shall see what are the precautionary measures that has to be taken by the paying banker while making payment of checks. First one is proper form of the check. Check must be drawn on the bank's printed forms. Now we shall see what are the advantages of using printed form of check. It is convenient for the drawer to draw a check. He need not take any precautionary measures while drafting a check as per the requirement of the Act. The counterfoil of the check serves the purpose of record for future reference. If the customer keeps the checkbook safely and carefully, chances for forgery can be minimized. If the drawer wishes to countermand payment of any check, he can issue instructions to the banker more conveniently. Next one is date of the check. A check must bear a date. If an undated check is presented for payment, the banker must refuse its payment. The date should not be incomplete. It must include, besides the year, the name of the month and and number of the day. For example, if a check is dated January 31, 2026, it is said to be in complete form. If the drawer mentions a date earlier to the date of writing the check, it is called an antedated check. The banker shall make payment of such checks. If the drawer mentions a date on the check which is subsequent to the date on which it is drawn, it is called a post-dated check. The banker should not make payment of post-dated check before the date mentioned therein. Second one is amount of the check. The amount of the check must be certain and expressed both in words and figures. In case of any discrepancy between the amount expressed in words and figures, the banker may pay the amount written in words. But in practice, the banker send back the check to the drawer with the remark that amount mentioned in words and figures differ and seek necessary corrections by the drawer. Then second one is funds in the account must be sufficient, and if the banker has already agreed to grant a loan or overdraft to the customer upon up to a certain limit, checks in excess of credit balance in the account but within the limit of loan or overdraft may be honored by the banker. Checks are to be paid in full and not in part. Next, we shall discuss when the banker may refuse the payment of their customer's check. Now we shall see what are the statutory duty of a paying banker regarding the payment of checks. First one is when the drawer countermands payment. The drawer is competent to cancel or withdraw the check at any time before it is paid. The drawer need not explain the reason for stopping the payment of check. The following points may be considered regarding the countermand order. The right to countermand payment of check is vested only in the hands of drawer and not the payee or the endorsee. The stop payment order may be given by the drawer verbally or in written form. Sometimes a telephonic message is also valid if the banker can clearly identify the voice of the customer. Then the stop payment order must be signed by the drawer of the check. In case of firm or joint account or trust account, any of the person authorized to sign may stop the payment of check. The drawer must inform the banker full and correct details of the check for which the payment has to be stopped. For example, the number, date of the check, name of the payee and its amount has to be clearly indicated to the banker. Then the countermand order may be duly served on the banker before the payment of check is made. The banker shall be liable to the drawer if he makes payment even after receiving the countermand order. Then if the banker has made the payment of check after the banking hours on any working day or before the banking hours on next working day, and in meanwhile the customer countermands such payment, means the banker shall be liable for the same. The stop payment order remains effective until it is revoked by the drawer. Next one is death of the drawer. The second situation under which the banker may refuse the payment of check is the death of the drawer. The, when the banker receives the information about the death of the drawer, the banker must immediately stop the payment of check signed by him. The following points may be considered regarding the death of the drawer. The time of receipt of notice or information by the banker about the death of the customer, and not the time of the death itself is important for the banker. Payments made between the time of death and receipt of its news by the banker may rightly be debited to customer's account. Then next, if an agent who has signed a check on behalf of his principal dies, means the payment of such check is not to be stopped because the agent himself is not the drawer. The account of the deceased customer shall remain inoperative until a succession certificate is provided by his legal representative. Then third situation under which banker may refuse the payment of their customer's check is insolvency of the drawer. Suppose if a debtor commits an act of insolvency as defined in law, either he or any of his creditors may present a petition in the court of law for an order of adjudication. When the court issues an order of adjudication, the whole property of insolvent person vests in the court or an official receiver and becomes available for distribution among the creditors. The banker must stop payment from customer's account as soon as he receives the information that an insolvency petition has been filed by or against the customer. After an order of adjudication has been issued, the banker must close the account and communicate the balance to the credit of customer to the official receiver. Fourth situation under which banker may refuse payment of their customer's check is insanity of the customer. The banker is not bound to honor his customer's check when they receives the notice that the latter has become an insane or of unsound mind. But so long as the customer acts rationally, means, and understands the things properly, in such a situation the payment should not be refused. The banker must have confirmed information from reliable source about the insanity of the customer before they refuses payment. The next one is notice of assignment of credit balance. The credit balance in the account of a customer may be assigned by him to another person. If after receiving such notice of assignment, the banker must stop payment of checks drawn by the assigner as the latter ceases to be the owner. Then next one is garnishee order. The banker must refuse payment of check presented after the receipt of garnishee order or any other order issued by the court attaching the customer's money. Then next one is defective title of the party. If any person presenting a check has defective title to the check and the banker is aware of about the fact, he can immediately refuse the payment of check. Then last one is refusing the other circumstances under which the banker may refuse payment of checks. First circumstance, if the check is a post-dated check or a stale check, they can refuse. And next one, if the check is drawn on another branch of same bank, but this situation is not applicable nowadays in case if the banks which have adopted core banking solution, means the check drawn on a particular branch can be encashed at other branches also. Then next one is if the signature of the drawer is a forged one or does not tally with the specimen signature, means in that situation also they can refuse payment. Then next, if the check contains an apparent material alteration which is not properly authenticated by the drawer, means in such situation also they can refuse payment. And last one is if the funds of the customer in his account are not sufficient or not properly applicable to the payment of such a check, means they can refuse the payment. So these are all the situations under which a paying banker may refuse payment for their customer's check. Thank you.